So, on one evening, while Chinenye was in the kitchen preparing a meal for her grandfather, Uzodinma walked into the kitchen and threatened to kill her if she refused to leave their home. He told Chinenye that he was giving her till midnight to disappear, or else he would make her life a living hell. Chinenye had not felt this much terror in her life before. The anger in her father's eyes sent shivers down her spine as she began to deliberate on if to leave or not. Once upon a time, there lived a girl named Chinenye who lived in a very small village with her father and grandfather. Her father hated her with all of his heart, and Chinenye did everything to make him love her, but her father's hatred for her grew as the days went by. Initially, Chinenye lived with her poor mother, who showered her with so much love and attention. Her mother was a poor market woman who sold food items in the local market. She fell terribly ill one day and died shortly afterwards, leaving Chinenye all alone in the world. However, on the night before she died, she called Chinenye aside and revealed to her the identity of her father. For all these years, Chinenye had always asked her mother who her father was, but her mother withheld the information from her, saying that when the time was right, she would be able to tell Chinenye the identity of her father, and Chinenye, despite being curious, decided to be patient with her mother, as she saw a flicker of sadness in her mother's eyes whenever she brought up talks about her father. On the said night, when her mother revealed who her father was to her, Chinenye could not help but ask her mother why she kept her away from her father for all these years, and her mother said something to her that shocked her to the marrow. Chinenye's father had no idea that she existed. This came as a shock to Chinenye, who just realized that her father was unaware of her existence. Her mother, however, warned her to be careful of her father because he was a very dangerous man. She told Chinenye to promise her that she would never go in search of her father, and Chinenye, although desperate, made the promise to her mother, who died peacefully the next evening. Her death shattered Chinenye's heart, as she could not believe that her mother was no more. Chinenye mourned the death of her mother, who was the only family she had ever known. She continued to live in the village, catering for herself. It was a very tough life for her, as she struggled to make ends meet. The only valuable thing she had was a necklace she inherited from her mother before she died. All the men who ever came forward to assist her tried to take advantage of her, and when Chinenye rejected their advances, they withdrew their help, assuring her that she would die a poor and miserable woman. So, on one day, Chinenye decided to go against her mother's warning to go in search of her father. She believed that life with her father would never be worse than the life that she was currently living. So Chinenye set out to find her father. Using the information that her mother gave to her, Chinenye searched for her father. She moved from one village to the other and came across an old palm wine tapper who revealed to her that he knew who her father was. Chinenye, delighted to hear this, pleaded with the old man to take her to her father, and the old man took her straight to the house of Mazi Ochuko. Mazi Ochuko was a very wealthy man in the village with so many landed properties and livestock. He was a very sick man who had an only son named Uzodinma. Uzodinma was Chinenye's father, and all these years, he had no idea that he had a child. When Chinenye approached Uzodinma to reveal that she was his daughter, Uzodinma flared up, saying that Chinenye can never be his child. He chased her away from his home, warning her never to return, and just as he was about pushing her out of his home, his sick father overheard all that transpired and walked out to stop him. He approached Chinenye and asked who she was, and Chinenye narrated all that her late mother had told her. Mazi Ochuko listened intently to all that Chinenye had to say. As she was talking, He cited a birthmark that Chinenye had on her wrist, the same birthmark that his son also had on his own wrist. This convinced him that Chinenye was truly the daughter of his son Uzodinma, and Mazi Ochuko, on seeing how adamant his son was to send Chinenye away from his home, warned him never to send her away. He offered Chinenye a room in his home and welcomed her into his family. Mazi Ochuko was so delighted to meet his granddaughter, who was not only beautiful but kind and hardworking. Despite being extremely sick, Mazi Ochuko spent his time getting to know his granddaughter. They became extremely close, and he showered Chinenye with so much love. Chinenye in turn took care of her ailing grandfather as she catered to all his needs and ensured that he was always comfortable. Her father, however, was not comfortable with how close Chinenye was to his father. He knew that he had not been a good son to his father for all these years and feared that his father would leave all his wealth to Chinenye instead of himself. So, on one evening, whilst Chinenye was in the kitchen preparing a meal for her grandfather, Uzodinma walked into the kitchen and threatened to kill her if she refused to leave their home. He told Chinenye that he was giving her till midnight to disappear, or else he would make her life a living hell. Chinenye had not felt this much terror in her life before. The anger in her father's eyes sent shivers down her spine as she began to deliberate on if to leave or not. However, seeing how helpless her grandfather was, with no one to care for him, Chinenye decided to take the risk, as she could not stand anything happening to her sick grandfather, who was unable to look after himself. Night fell, and Chinenye decided to catch some sleep in her room. She was extremely exhausted from the day's event, and as she slept, a strange noise woke her in the dead of the night. It was a tapping sound coming from her window. Curious but a bit frightened, Chinenye walked to the window to see what was causing the noise. To her surprise, she saw the old palm wine tapper, who led her to her father. He gestured for her to come out quickly, and Chinenye rushed outside the house to meet him. She asked the old man why he was there by that time of the night, and the old man looked around nervously and said to her that he heard what happened between Chinenye and her father earlier that evening. He said that Chinenye's life was in grave danger as her father had plotted to kill her. The old man advised Chinenye that she had to leave to save herself as she did not have much time left. Chinenye, on sensing the seriousness in his voice, agreed to leave with him. Her heart raced with fear and confusion as she followed the old man, who promised to hide her in a safe place. They walked silently into the forest and arrived at a small hut, which was hidden deep in the forest. The old man told Chinenye to go into the hut and hide till morning, promising to get help from the village. He warned that on no condition should Chinenye leave the hut, and Chinenye nodded in agreement as he left. After several hours, Chinenye could not stop thinking about her grandfather and how he was coping without her help. She decided to sneak back to her grandfather's house to check on him when she caught sight of her father Uzodinma wielding a very huge stick in his hand. Chinenye, on sighting him, began to run towards the forest, and Uzodinma ran after her with all his might. After a few minutes, Uzodinma caught up with Chinenye, who tripped and fell to the ground. Paralyzed with fear, Chinenye could only watch as her father advanced towards her. In a desperate plea, she cried out, "Father, please do not harm me." But Uzodinma's anger was blind as he swung the huge stick, striking her legs continuously. The pain was so unbearable as Chinenye screamed out in extreme agony and blacked out. Her father Uzodinma, on realizing the gravity of his actions, ran away in fear, leaving his daughter alone in the forest. By the time the old man returned to the forest with help, they met Chinenye, whose legs had now been broken, lying unconscious in the forest. They rushed her back to the village and sought the help of a powerful healer who tended to her broken legs. However, the damage had already been done as Chinenye was left permanently crippled. Her grandfather, Mazi Ochuko, on hearing what had happened, was filled with rage and sorrow. He could not believe that his son would ever harm his own daughter. He sent out a search party to look for his son Uzodinma, who was found trying to escape into the neighboring village. Mazi Ochuko, in that moment, regretted the role he played in his son's life, which shaped him into the heartless man that he was presently. When Uzodinma was still quite young, his father pampered him and allowed him to have his way with everything. Uzodinma was his only child, and Mazi Ochuko, being a wealthy man, provided everything that Uzodinma ever wanted. He never cautioned him when he was wrong, and even when his wife would try to intervene and make her son know that what he did was wrong, Mazi Ochuko would warn his wife sternly to leave his son alone. Uzodinma grew up into a very arrogant and pompous man who had no regard for those around him. He was a man out of control who believed that he was untouchable and did whatever he wanted. Uzodinma went around the village causing havoc, and several stories were being heard about how he defiled some young women in the village who dared not to call his name, as he threatened to kill them if they ever told anyone about his misdeeds. This was the exact same way that Uzodinma got Chinenye's mother pregnant, and for years she was unable to reveal the man responsible for her pregnancy. His father, Mazi Ochuko, was now fed up with his son and decided to ensure that Uzodinma faced the consequences of his actions. The young men who he sent to find Uzodinma found him trying to escape from their village and brought him before his sick father, who looked him in the eyes and told him how disappointed he was in him. Mazi Ochuko revealed to his son that he had always loved him and condoned his terrible character. He told Uzodinma that all he ever had always been his, but on seeing how heartless Uzodinma was to render his own daughter disabled, he decided that his granddaughter Chinenye was more deserving of his wealth. He rebuked his son for being so heartless and ordered for the men to take him away. Mazi Ochuko, in that stead, called upon the village elders to decide a befitting punishment for his son. The council of elders gathered, and after hearing the testimony of the old palm wine tapper, as well as others who had been affected by Uzodinma's past misdeeds, the elders were deeply troubled. It was clear that Uzodinma had become a danger to the community, someone whose unchecked actions could no longer be tolerated. So, the elders decided to first strip Uzodinma of all rights to his father's wealth and properties, which were to be immediately transferred to Chinenye as her rightful inheritance. This act was not only to punish him, but also to restore some measure of support to Chinenye, who was now disabled. The elders then went on to pronounce that Uzodinma would be paraded around the village and his crimes announced to all, so that every man, woman and child understood the horrors he had inflicted upon his own daughter. Following the public shaming, Uzodinma was then banished from the village and forbidden from ever returning, with the stern warning that any attempt to come back would be met with even harsher penalties. Mazi Ochuko, though heartbroken, supported the elders' decision, seeing it as necessary to protect the future of the village and the moral fabric of the society. Chinenye, however, sat in her room as she stared at her broken legs. She pleaded with her late mother to forgive her for going against the promise she made to her, not to go in search of her father. Chinenye held her mother's necklace in her hands as she began to weep. Suddenly, she felt a warm sensation in her legs as her bones began to repair itself. After a few minutes, Chinenye noticed that she could now walk. She quickly walked to her grandfather's room to break the news to him, and her grandfather could not contain his joy as he watched her dance around the room in excitement. That was how Chinenye got her healing and lived happily with her grandfather. The lesson to be learned from this story is that parents should be careful on how they raise their children. It is very important for parents to actively participate in their children's upbringing, to instill values and morals that promote empathy and compassion. The best thing you can do to your child is to teach him or her the right way to go. As the Bible said, train up a child in the way he should go, so that when he grows, he will not depart from it. May God give us the strength to raise upright children. I hope you enjoyed the story.
Like, subscribe and leave a comment. It helps us grow our channel. I'll see you in our next story. Bye.